Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. I have to say, I have been waiting for this conversation for a while. So excited about the topic we're going to be discussing today about AI and coaching and human coaching and where does the balance lie. And of course, to discuss that, we have none other than Eric Nitzberg, an expert in the space. Eric, welcome.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be on your show. Good to see you again.
Yeah, so good to see you. So we crossed paths while you were doing some research for this really interesting article on this topic, but which we'll get into. But please share with our audience who you are, your background, what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I'm an executive coach. I've been a coach for 18 years, based in Silicon Valley, and mostly working with technology and life sciences companies. And I got very keenly interested in this topic, I guess out of fear that these products would take over my world. And so last year I kind of jumped into this deep dive to learn about AI coaching myself. And then the article that you mentioned was an artifact that came out of that.
Awesome. And I think we'll probably touch on a number of points in that article as we go, but if there's anything we're missing as we go, please feel free to share, because I thought that article was super comprehensive and well done. And thank you, of course, for including a shout out to Virtual Sapiens in that too. So, let's dive right in. So when we think about AI coaching humans, it's already a use case. There are companies that are built on this premise. Where do you feel, or where have you found that AI genuinely enhances coaching, and then where does it, risk diluting it?
I think AI has a set of strengths, and humans have a set of strengths, and there's some overlap, but there are some things that AI is uniquely good at, and the things that AI coaches are good at emerge from those strengths. So one of them is access. So this is the obvious, easy one. AI coaches are way less expensive than humans and can be, are available 24/7 and can be scaled across entire workforces in big companies pretty easily. And so if you have a 5-minute gap between meetings and you need a quick coaching moment, you may not pick up a phone to call your human coach, but you can pull out your AI coach and, work on something or prep for a conversation, depending on the type of AI coach. So access is a big one. I think skill building is another really good use case for AI coaches, whether that is practice and preparation of some sort of communication task like your platform specializes in, or even some other kinds of skill building like, hey, I'm a new manager, how do I delegate to an employee? And I think even a large language model can do a pretty competent job of explaining that. And then data is the third area that I think AI coaches are really good with. So depending on the product, an AI coach could be tuned such that company leadership could have access to aggregated data about what employees are worried about or what kind of leadership skills they need help with, et cetera. So I think those are all really good use cases for AI.
Agreed. Where do you feel AI then maybe oversteps, or people allow AI to overstep when it comes to this notion of AI coaching?
I think that maybe as a way of kind of backing into the answer would be to look at what humans are really good at, and what human coaches I think bring that's unique, which has to do with, well, all of the dimensions that make us human. We're embodied, we have bodies, we have real lived experience in the world. We have judgment based on not just data, or vast volumes of text or, whatever images, but we've actually been in the world. And so there are a number of capabilities that human coaches are uniquely suited to. I frame it, and I framed it in the article, as high stakes, high complexity, and high touch as the three areas for humans. So high stakes meaning there's big risk involved in the coaching. Maybe you're coaching a CEO who has to make big decisions that affect thousands of people. Is probably better for a human coach. High complexity meaning, again, nuanced power dynamics, complicated interpersonal relationships, things like that AI can't really manage or doesn't understand. And high touch meaning, for example, I can shake your hand, I can sit in your office with you, I can form an actual human-to-human relationship with you that can endure with all of the quirkiness and goodness of humanity. So I think the danger, to get at your question, the danger is if we try to apply AI too much to those kinds of situations. So, if somebody wanted to use an AI coach to coach a senior executive who's getting ready for congressional testimony, would be a bad use case for an AI just because of the hallucinations and the lack of context, and it's just too important and it's too complex and it's very human. And so I think that's how I think about it.
I have so many follow-up questions from what you just shared. So I agree with you on, I think one of the biggest barriers to AI really being able to, in any authentic way, be more of a human entity than like an AI kind of tech-trained piece of software is the embodied experience that humans have, right? Anything that has become a part of our knowledge is a part of our knowledge through having experienced it. Well, maybe that's not accurate. Most of what we form into our identities and everything is from our experience. A lot of it can also be from, data that we've also mined and been exposed to and organized, right? Which is in very much the same way that it works with an AI. But do you think that, so you mentioned that AI actually can't do some of these things that humans can do. The embodied one I agree with. My question, I think, is, do you think that AI will never be able to deal with some of the more complex coaching scenarios that humans currently excel at?
I mean, okay, first of all, so now you said a lot of things that I want to respond to. You use the word authenticity, and when I think about AI and authenticity, it's hard to contemplate because authenticity in AI would be more emotionless data. An authentic interaction with an AI, I would think, would reflect its true nature, which is it has no feelings, it has no body, it's not alive. Let's be clear about this. It's not an organism. It is a complex algorithm that's been trained on a massive volume of data. So I don't know. It can mimic what might appear to a human to be an authentic presence, and I think, to your question, I think that will become more and more persuasive as the models get better.
Yep.
And as particularly as digital humans get better. That's something I dug into pretty deeply. Just for listeners who might not know about that, but there are now AI models that, as their interface looks like a person talking to you on your screen. And some of the better ones, they're getting fairly good. I think Anam.ai has a pretty compelling, looking digital human.
Right.
But you think down the road, even a few years, those are going to look almost indistinguishable from a human. And then the AI model that's powering the brain behind that, as the models develop, they're going to get, I think, better and better. And they're going to encroach more and more on the things that today we say only a human could ever do that.
Yeah.
So I think the island that human coaches are standing on is going to gradually, or the continent is going to become an island, and then the island is going to get a little smaller. I think it will always exist. I think there will always be things that are only human, but I do think that the AI will get better and better.
So I agree. And let's just, for the sake of discussion, assume that all of these advances, all of the next stage of advancing AI, which is always to get as close to that human replicated experience as possible. Let's say that they all really advance, which of course they're going to. At what point is AI able to do things, and maybe we're already there, But at what point is AI able to do things that it should just absolutely not be allowed to do, either through regulation or through, you know, product design guardrails?
I do feel like we're right there now.
I agree.
And the thing is, it's so useful and so powerful that it's inescapable. I shouldn't say inescapable. I hate those kinds of words for AI, but it is an enormous temptation to use AI for almost everything that involves deep thought and research.
Yes.
And so I do think the risky areas are in the boardroom of companies and in the C-suite of companies and, you know, institutions where the biggest, most consequential decisions are being made. What kind of a voice does AI have in those decisions?
Right.
I talked to I have a colleague who's a board director in a big company, several companies, and I think I talked to him maybe a year or 18 months ago, and he couldn't imagine AI having any voice at all in the boardroom at that time.
Yeah.
And I need to ask him that question again now, but from what I'm seeing, my assumption is that it already is starting to have a place, in the C-suite and the boardroom, not just as a data cruncher, but as essentially as some kind of advisor.
Right.
And that I think is dangerous.
Yeah.
At this point.
Right. We have
actually. Can I say one thing?
Yes,
one
please.
more thing.
Yes.
The other area that, just as a call out to our children, I think the other area that is potentially disastrous is there are huge use cases for AI in education and AI tutors. Every child has an AI tutor that can teach it patiently and spend 10 hours a day teaching it. I think there is a huge risk also of mental health problems and social problems developing for children that spend more time learning from machine intelligence than they do from humans.
I think you're absolutely right. To your point about, your peer or friend who was like, there's no way AI is going to be anywhere near a boardroom, a number of years ago. And now here we are. We had an investor of our company who literally invested in the company who told me, this was like 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, he was like, no one is ever going to take anything AI says seriously. So if you're trying to create this like AI like feedback tool, it was just, this person was just like, there's no way. And anyway, so of course now I'm just kind of like, oh my goodness, because not only are people taking what AI says seriously, people are acting on things that AI suggests or leads them to, decisions that they come to as a result of discussing with AI. But I also think something you said, about like another thing I've been thinking about, I'd be curious to get your perspective on. We touched on it a little bit before we came into the recording session. But like you and I have grown up to see the rising of these technologies, right? Like the internet was invented during our time here, right? And social media became a thing that wasn't a part of any of our daily lives until recently, right? But we know we have developed strong muscles and capabilities around being comfortable with other humans and being able to discourse with other humans and But I do agree there's a big risk for, if these technologies start to become used in a really significant way as people are developing, right? We saw the same issue with screens in general with young people. And just shows, like not even talking about AI, but you introduce AI into the mix, this human-like but non-human entity, and you can see many potentially beneficial outcomes, right? An endlessly patient tutor who can sit with each child individually and help them get to the end of whatever their learning objective is. But if that goes farther, and I think this is also what I was saying also before we kind of came on, which the Pope recently wrote about in his huge response to AI, is that if we allow AI to bridge the or jump across from being a purpose-driven very specific support tool that's helping humans develop skills, that's helping humans become better humans, and switches over into this replacement of the relationships that we have to have with other humans in order to really survive as human beings. I think that's where we get into really dangerous territory.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, there's a lot in there. Um, there are a lot of different elements to this. I was talking with another podcast host a while back who was sharing stories about his childhood teachers and how, one of them was really nice and loving and another was really harsh and difficult. And he had to learn how to be with those different kinds of humans. And if you are largely or even, in large part taught by an AI, those AIs, they're not going to, I don't think there will be AI models that are deliberately obnoxious or difficult just to teach children how to deal with difficult humans. I think they're going to be nice. They're going to be easy to interact with. And so we already have a world where a lot of young people, I believe, are lacking in some of the kind of resilience skills that are needed to function well in the world. And so I think that could really further that problem. And then, you think about human relationships, and I guess where my mind goes with this is to our biology. So it's taken hundreds of thousands of years, our evolution into these forms, with our deeply social nature, evolved over a very long period of time. There is no way that we're going to evolve out of the need for human connection in the coming, centuries. It would take hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years to evolve away from that. And so our brains and our bodies need other humans to be okay, for us to be okay, to be happy, to be healthy, to thrive. Best case, we're in a small village where we know everybody and we're interacting with humans a lot. I mean, I know there are outliers and introverts, and I'm a mild introvert myself, but generally speaking, we really need each other. I think some of that, for some people, some of those needs may be addressed, at least partly, through machine intelligence. I mean, if you were all alone, and the difference between that and having a realistic human-like AI would be life-changing. But it's not the same. And I think that at some level, most people will continue to know that AIs are not humans. And so the risk there is that we get little glimpses into the fact that they're not humans. And I think that those glimpses, like an AI company changes the model, or the data gets lost, or personality changes, or I think glimpses into that lack of authenticity, that lack of humanity could be devastating for someone whose life is overly built around those kind of connections. So I understand the Pope's perspective on a lot of that.
Yeah, I also, I tend to agree with what you're saying, but there are communities of people who have struck up these deep relationships with AI companions, right? We have people who are trying to legally get married to their AIs. We have people who, what is it? The Reddit thread. My boyfriend is AI. My girlfriend is AI. And so it just, you kind of wonder, you're like, do these people, because I have only spoken with a handful of people who have developed more friendships with their AIs, but not someone who's been in more of an intimate relationship with an AI, a la Her, if you've seen that movie.
I haven't, but I get.
Oh my gosh, you have to. It's crazy how omnipotent it is. But anyways, right? So you kind of begs the question: do these people think that their AI is actually has those human qualities we've just said that AI absolutely does not have? Do they think that actually maybe no? Oh, those people who say AI isn't sentient, AI isn't this, they're wrong. AI is. My AI is. Or are they like, no, I understand that my AI is not those things, but AI treats me better than any other human has ever treated me, right? It's what is, and maybe it's both. But the reality is that people are choosing in some cases to go down this path with an AI versus with a human. And maybe it's that we're too early and we don't actually know. Maybe a year from now they'll get bored of that relationship and be like, ugh, like I'm going to go divorce my AI and try to find a human now. It might be too early to know, but these things are happening. And so I think it's very hard to fathom as like a balanced human being who like is integrated in society, but there are lots of people who aren't, right? And maybe, I don't know. I don't have any answer. I just think it's really interesting, the capabilities.
Just taking that back to a corporate setting. I had a conversation with someone recently who's a founder in an AI startup, and he was telling me how, in essence, everything that they're doing is being fed into the AI.
Yeah.
And because they're true, most of them are true believers. This guy is quite young, but the others in the company are even younger. And their attitude is kind of like, yeah, of course, the AI should have full access to all of our Slack, our calendars, our email, our data, our code, our everything that we're doing. I don't know if it has access to all the meeting content, but it certainly could if the meetings are virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like we're all feeding the AI, but the AI is kind of running the company, sort of,
right.
In some sense, kind of running the company. And he and I got into this whole discussion about, so for your peers who are younger than you are you worried that they're not going to know how to interact with each other? And it's already cropping up, like it's already showing up that, oh, well, the AI is so much easier. Or if I need information, it's so much easier just to go to the AI. I can get exactly what I need.
Right.
And so,
right, exactly.
But I do think that human institutions will still exist for a really long time, and which means humans will need to interact with each other for work, not just with AI.
Yeah.
And those skills will become increasingly rare and valuable, I think, in a world of agents and what we're moving towards.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we sit with this a lot at Virtual Sapiens because of the nature of what we do. And it's funny, we do have some very, or at least we always, because our AIs are customizable, it's always up to the whoever's setting up the environment or the individual learner who the AI plays. But difficult conversations with humans is like one of the main things that people practice on our platform, right? So AI helping a human develop more human skills, right? That feels good to me right now.
100%.
Right. And, but yeah, we'll have some very difficult AIs that people are interacting with because they're trying to get that like more human reactive, emotionally reactive, experience. But, we do also put specific guardrails around what you can do with our AI platform because we want to prevent these, non-intended possible consequences, right? So you cannot engage with our AI for longer than 30 minutes, right? That, in a conversation. So you couldn't even have a 45 to 60-minute coaching session, right? That wouldn't even be possible.
Interesting
right?
choice.
Yeah.
Is that partly for tokens and data use, or is it primarily more philosophical?
It is. I mean, we don't price. We price based on either like mostly usage. So if you use it a lot, like you'll just be paying us more money.
I got it.
But it's also it's twofold. I think it's mostly we don't want someone to accidentally have the role play running.
Oh.
If they're not engaging with it, and then they come back to us and they're like, well, I had a 5-minute conversation and it was a 5-hour long session. So that's like one fail safe for that from more of a technical perspective. But it's also more from that like moral, it serves a dual purpose because it can also, like, there's no reason, if you're practicing a difficult conversation with someone, you really should be like using the AI as that, like, okay, here we are, we've done our small talk. This is the hard thing I need to tell you. Let me try it a few times and see all the different ways these different AIs can like respond to that. That shouldn't be taking more than like 15, 20 minutes.
I think it's good mental health hygiene for your users too, probably. I mean, I know that I've gotten into multi-hour, like 2-hour deep dive conversations, text-based usually, but conversations with an AI. And at the other end of it, I feel less able to interact with my family. Like there's just, you just get so deep into your own mind
Yeah.
and the kind of types of interactions that an AI provides. And then it takes me a while to kind of come back to my body and back to my humanity, if you will.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some real atrophy. I mean, we all know, right? For anyone who's been injured, it takes you months to build a muscle, and then you can like immobilize the leg for 3 days, and it's like, wha.
Start over.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But the
sad.
good news is you can get it back.
You
And
can
I
get
think
it
that's
back.
true
Yes.
with AI use too. Like
Yeah.
you can still get it back.
Right. Yeah. So going back to our initial focus here around like coaching specifically.
Yes.
So what do you feel is like the ideal balance between, or maybe a better way to put it is like, how do you view the role of the coach evolving as AI becomes more integrated?
I envision a future where for senior executives, maybe let's start there. Most of them, I think, will have both a human coach and an AI coach, or more than one human coach advisor and more than one AI coach advisor for different purposes. And I think, kind of back to my earlier point, the things that the AI is particularly good at, they will go to the AI for those things. You could have, I mean, I don't know how far along this particular functionality is, but you can imagine a situation where an AI coach would be tied into the whole intelligence infrastructure for the company. Mm-hmm. So a CEO or a senior executive could be having a coaching session with an AI coach, but also, pivot directly into, well, how is my leadership team feeling this week? Or, which parts of the company are more worried about this versus others, where it could just jump back and forth between. So I think those sorts of functionalities will develop for different kinds of AI coach type products. So you would want that, and you would want it for the accessibility and all the reasons we talked about. Mm-hmm. But then you would have a human coach for the really human stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I'm worried, I'm having an existential crisis. I have a big decision to make. I need to navigate a really complicated relationship with another person, my board chair or whatever it is. So I think you'd have both. And then for folks further down in organizations, I think it'll depend on what the company's willing to spend. So I think the frontline employees will have an AI coach only. And I think in the middle of the company, they'll have a hybrid, where
Right.
most of what they do is with an AI coach and they have limited access to a human coach for the stuff that really requires it.
Right. The last thing I wanted to ask you about the human coach versus AI coach, because you touched on it earlier, like, so you can actually control what the AI is able to orient itself around as like a purpose pretty well, and that will become, I think, increasingly so. But human coaches, right, have to have similar guardrails in the engagements that they take with clients, right? Like human coaches are also not looking to have that relationship pass into therapy or pass into anything more personal, right? So there are guardrails that human coaches also have with their engagements. Do you think that, do you see any reason why AI coaches would have an issue with that? With like maintaining that like coach only perspective?
I think it's a really interesting question. And I think I'd never thought about this until you just asked me, but I think one of the aspects of being a human coach is figuring out exactly how to navigate those boundaries, given the specifics of the relationship and the moment that you're in. There are moments when I'm coaching someone where it feels like moving a little bit into friendship will help them tremendously for the moment. And so I might flex a boundary, or share something about myself. I mean, I try not to do too much of that in coaching, but sometimes it can be incredibly powerful to say, look, let me tell you about my own experience. So all of those tools, I think, are going to be much more uniform in an AI coach, where the boundaries are going to be more set. There might be a lot of missed opportunities where an AI coach could be a little bit more flexible on some of those boundaries, but because it can't, as a matter of policy, it can't help as much.
Right.
And certainly it's not going to share its own experience, because if it does, it loses any semblance of, of what seems like authenticity.
Right.
One thing I have wondered, and you could probably speak to this, but I have wondered if an AI coaching platform could ever draw on its own experience, but in a sort of an aggregated way.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually a lot of the people that I talk to, this is me being the AI coach, actually, most of the executives
Yeah.
that I talk to have imposter syndrome.
Right.
You shouldn't feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be credible.
Yes.
That would be like authentic for an
Yes.
AI to say. But
Right.
it'd have to be very careful around privacy and security issues for stuff like that.
Right. I feel like that would be possible. I mean, I know that like AI will already say things like, "Oh yes, of course, like totally understand that's a very common reaction, or that's a very common like even when you're just chatting with ChatGPT and you're like, oh
Yeah.
right." So there's definitely already some of that, but that is interesting because yeah, you would right for obvious reasons you have to make sure that people aren't just becoming like completely enamored with their AI coaches. And so you'd have to put those guardrails in place. But then to your point, right, and that's I think one of the things that humans can also do well is like be able to act briefly with judgment beyond the like protocol, so to speak, right? If the context warrants it, right?
I've never thought of that as a unique human coach feature, but I really think it is. Like sometimes, oh, my client is in town, my virtual client is in town. Well, let's get a beer while you're in town.
Exactly.
And the beer is not all about their business and all about whatever.
Yeah.
That is me building
Yes.
a human relationship with
Yes.
them, a more than purely professional,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's
Absolutely.
a personal element to that, which enriches and deepens all the other work that
Yes.
we would do.
Yes.
So that's definitely a limitation for AI.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, because I just, of course, I only know my experience in this, but with my coach, like, we do have a closer relationship. Like, she's met my son. Like we don't like hang out, right? But like, there are I know like a little bit about her. And I've personally always like kind of needed that, like, because I have had, you shop around with coaches when you're newer in an engagement, and there will be some coaches who are super rigid with exactly that, like it's always only going to be you, la la la. And I felt that like it's so interesting because that would be more of what I would expect from an AI coach that's been told to do exactly this. And I think some human coaches, depending on whatever certification they've taken, are very hard line about that, right? Interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. We've gone to some interesting places.
Yes. Well, anyways, we do have to wrap up. As we do, though, anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
I hope that your audience is playing with these tools and excited like I am about these tools. I don't know if that came across in the whole discussion because we talked a lot about risks and so forth, but I think the potential for AI coaching is phenomenal. I mean, imagine most of the world doesn't have access to anything like a coach and will in the coming decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could change the world in hugely positive ways, in addition to some of the risky areas we've talked about. I mean, just there's a lot of, I hate to say it, there's a lot of bad managers out there that desperately need help in being better managers.
Yeah.
And a lot of poor communicators that desperately need help in being better communicators. So I do think that this technology has a potential to really change the world for the better. I just hope that people like yourself who are implementing the technology are thoughtful about how they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do a part 2, Eric.
I would love that. Let's talk in 6 months or something or whatever.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation.
Totally. Where can people, if people want to follow more of your work and your thought leadership, where's the best way for them to do that?
They can look up my name on their favorite AI, or they can Google me or look at my website at sierraleadership.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. As I said, I was literally so excited to have this conversation and excited for more. So thank you, Eric, for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. It was my pleasure.
All right. And as always, thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.